What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for watching another video. Today we're back with my MK7 GTI, and we're going to be talking about a couple of things today, especially what to look for when you're going to be buying one of these used. I've actually had a lot of people that have DM'd me, even parents asking what to look for that they want to buy their kid or even for themselves a GTI. And I want to show you in today's video the things that you should look for when you're buying a used MK7 GTI. So we're going to be starting in the engine bay under the hood of the car, and the first thing that I want to mention to you guys is you're going to want to look at the coolant ball first, because if there is low coolant in the car, that means that most likely it is either leaking somewhere, you might have a failing water pump, or something is going on with the coolant system in the car. So the first thing that you want to make sure is that there is enough coolant in the coolant ball, and then after you make sure that there's enough coolant in the ball itself, then you're going to want to look at the front of the engine right here to see if you see any sort of leaking coolant, because if you see any kind of dried coolant on the front of the engine or on the actual belly pan of the car, it means that most likely your water pump is leaking and you're going to have to get that replaced as soon as you buy the car. So the first thing you want to look at is to make sure that there's actually coolant in the coolant ball itself, and then look at the front of the engine to make sure that you have no coolant leak in there either, so it means that you don't have a faulty water pump or thermostat housing in that area of the car. So the next thing that I'm going to recommend is we have the engine cover right here. It is super simple to pop it off, and if you're looking at a used car, whether it's from a dealer or from a person that's selling it secondhand used, I would definitely recommend just popping this off really quickly just so you can look in depth, because let me show you, if we pop this off, you're able to see a lot more than what you think. And now that I have the cover off, one thing that you want to definitely make sure is on the front side of the engine here, where the cam cradle, valve cover, you know, whatever name you want to specifically call this area of the engine, you want to make sure that there's no oil seepage here. It means that it is not sealed properly. So you guys know this car does not use a valve cover gasket. It uses a special sealant from Volkswagen that they use to basically mate the engine together so it causes no leaks. But over time, this will tend to leak. So if you look on the front of the engine and you see some oil seepage or anything, it means that it is leaking, which also means you're probably going to have oil in your spark plug wells. So it can foul out your plugs, it can mess up your coils, and the car is not going to run right. And some people and dealers might just clean this up really quickly, sell you the car, and after a couple hundred to a couple thousand miles, you might see the problem persist. So again, you definitely want to pop off your engine cover of the car that you're looking at, and just make sure that you see no oil leaking around this area, because that could cause a lot of issues, and it is pretty costly to remove all of this, to get it resealed, put it back on. So you don't want to deal with that when you're buying a new to you used car for one of these. Last thing under the hood in the engine bay that I suggest you guys take a look at is the PCV valve, which is right here. Just make sure that you don't see any leaks around here as well. Make sure that it's not too worn out. And another thing that I recommend you looking at is the PCV hose that goes from the actual valve to your inlet pipe, because if there's an oil leak there, that could cause a lot of issues. God forbid it falls on the hot turbo, it could start a fire. So if you do notice an oil leak also in this area, or that this isn't doing its proper job, it's all gunky on the hose, or you see that there's some residue on the inlet pipe, this could be a recipe for a catastrophic failure. You could definitely mess something up, and some people, again, don't want to look at this stuff. So that's why it's always good to remove the engine cover, because you're able to see a lot more than what the car and the owner are telling you. So as long as that checks out, you should be good under the hood of the car by checking your coolant, by checking to make sure you have no oil seepage on the front of the engine where the cam cradle is, and making sure that your PCV valve is in good working order, that there's no leaks going on there as well. So now that we've covered some of the basic stuff under the hood of the car, the next thing that I want to talk about is DSG service and clutch history on the MK7 GTI. Now, when it comes to the DSG service, if you're buying a DSG MK7, basically you want to make sure that the maintenance has been up to date. It is typically from Volkswagen, done every 40,000 miles. So if you're buying one with higher mileage, 80,000 plus, typically it would have been done twice. And it's good to get a service history on that with some proof that it's been done, because if something happens, you're not gonna have a good time, and you gotta replace a transmission. It's gonna cost thousands of dollars. And obviously that's not something that you want when you're first buying a car, where you don't have the maintenance history, and then right off the bat, you gotta replace something like that because it failed miserably because the person before you didn't do proper maintenance. So if the owner didn't maintain it right, I suggest just walking away. If they don't have a service history on a higher mileage MK7, again, I wouldn't even attempt to buy it, because obviously something might have been weird. So going with the DSG, make sure if you're buying a higher mileage one that it has the service history of the proper intervals for the DSG service on these cars. And then if you're buying a manual transmission car, I definitely suggest giving the car a good rip when you test drive it. If you're at a dealer, just make sure you're checking with the salesperson that goes with you on the test drive if you're allowed to put your foot down a little bit, because these clutches will typically slip even on stock power. They have higher mileage as well. So you don't want to baby the car on a test drive and then realize when you're going home with the car a couple days later that the clutch is actually messed up. So you want to make sure that the clutch feels good, doesn't make any weird noises, doesn't catch towards the top. And when you put your foot down in third, fourth, fifth gear, their RPMs don't shoot up and show that the clutch is slipping. So that's another thing that you want to make sure is if you're buying a manual transmission that the clutch is in good working order. And if you don't know what that's supposed to feel like, make sure you bring somebody with you who knows how to drive a manual, who's very familiar with how they're supposed to feel. That'll help you out a lot if you're buying a manual transmission GTI. So next thing that we're going to be focusing on are the rockers of the Mark 7 GTI. So essentially we have our rocker all running down the side of the car. One of the main things that people do, unfortunately, with these cars is they jack them up in the wrong spots, and then they tend to cause bends right in this area, right here, and on the back, right there, because people aren't jacking up the cars in the right section. So if you see any sort of bends, like here, that this is all bent up, or on the front, or anywhere down the rocker, there's like severe bending, it means that somebody in the lifespan of this car did not jack the car up in the right location. And that is a huge thing, because if you take this car to a body shop, it's gonna cost hundreds of dollars to fix that. And obviously you don't want that. So if you see anybody selling one that has bends on the rockers, I suggest just to walk away, because there might be even more extensive damage on the bottom when they've serviced this car, maybe when they've changed wheels. There's a lot of different things that you could have done, or that they could have done that could have ruined the rockers of the car. So if you see anything on the driver or the passenger side, any sort of bends, I would definitely just walk away from the car, because there could be more extensive damage under the car if you ever have to lift it up. So next, guys, is going to be the interior. I cannot speak on this because my car doesn't have it, but this is just a precautionary thing, is the sunroof. If you have a sunroof in this car, make sure that it's not leaking. You'll be able to see signs of it up on the headliner itself up here. Over there on this side, you might see some accumulation of water when you bring down your sun visors. Over in this area, you might see some dry water. Make sure that the sunroof, if you do buy one that has a sunroof, is not leaking, because that could be a pain too. You might get mold in your car. It's gonna smell musty. It could cost money to fix it if you don't know how to do it yourself. So that could be a big thing. So remember, check in this area, pull the visor down to make sure that there's no issues there on the passenger and on the driver's side. And make sure around the sunroof itself, there's no issues here that you're gonna see any kind of dry water on the headliner of the car. And the last thing that I'm gonna be talking about is modifications on the Mark 7 GTI. Take a look around the car and make sure that the car has not been previously modified. Look under the hood of the car to see if any of the screws where the intake are, or where the inlet pipe are, where the downpipe is, there's no like scratches and stuff, because when people modify these cars, they typically drive them a lot harder. So maybe you don't want that. You want a stock car that's never been touched. So just take a look at all that stuff, because it is possible that the person before you modified it and put it back to stock and you don't know. So check under the hood of the car, see if there's any scratches of any kind of modifications that might have been done. Look at the car suspension here to make sure that like the car might have not been previously lowered. If you look through the wheel and the tire, you might be able to see if maybe the car has been touched there. You know, you want to look at the brakes. Maybe they've had like a brake hit on the car before or something like that. You know, you want to look all around the car, because it is possible, because these cars are so highly modifiable, that people might have played with them before you bought it. And if that's not what you're looking for, then I suggest you not buy it. Now, if you're looking for a car that's already been modified and you don't care, that's a different story. But this is for the people that want a stock canvas of a car. Just look all around, look at the front end, make sure that you basically find a car that you want. And if you want a stock car, you want to look at all of that stuff. Go to the back of the car, check the exhaust. Maybe it's got a catback. You don't even know what you're looking for. If you have bigger tips, you know what I mean? There's a lot of little things that you can see if the car's been modified or not. And if you don't know, make sure to bring a buddy, a family member, anybody who might know, that you're able to show them, and they'll be able to tell you, hey, this car's been modified or not. So that's the last thing that I'm going to bring up, is if you're looking for a stock car, make sure you're looking to see if the car has not been modified before. Anyways, guys, that's going to conclude the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little bit weird. It feels like I'm losing my voice for some reason. So if I sound kind of annoying, I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm kind of losing my voice. I couldn't tell you why. But anyways, these cars are amazing. I love them. And there are a couple of things you need to look out for if you're buying one used, just so you're aware. Just look at the obvious things. Look in the, in the engine bay, make sure nothing weird is going on there. Look on the outside of the car, make sure there's no weird damages that don't look normal. Or again, if you don't know, you might have a friend or a family member that can help you out that might know more than you when it comes to buying one of these cars. Essentially, these cars are pretty reliable. They make a lot of power, they're fun to drive, and if you're looking for one for a kid, it's a perfect first car. If you're a parent, an adult trying to have a car that's a little more fun and sporty, this is the perfect platform for you. But just keep in mind, everything that I mentioned in today's video, you don't want to have any of those issues when you're buying one. You don't want to have any surprises or any big bills to pay if something's wrong with the car when you go to buy it. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. It lets YouTube know that I'm doing a good job. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good day.